early, so everybody wants to start making their way back to their seats. The mayor and council will be calling in voting here shortly. So, thank you.
What is commented that they have trouble getting tips related to the city or is that one I told?
All right, just have her. Hey, it's
Okay,
making
we're going to get started.
moves down here.
Let me start by thanking all of you for your support. Several work, and a lot of folks have put into this. And I want to express my appreciation to all of those on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, Steering Committee, city staff, consulting team, RB, Duncanville, the Duncanville community, that's you. That's you. Also my council, the city that all sits here today, I think we're all here. Tremendous amount of support for this endeavor. Economic Development Corporation, Planning and Zoning Commission, and Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. So I want to thank you all for all your contributions to this incredible document that's in a draft form right now. And hopefully after we get input, feedback, I apologize for the mic, we'll continue on to have the best comprehensive plan that this city's ever seen to take us into the future. I'm good. So with that, before I pass it over to the Planning and Zoning Commissioner, I want to go ahead and open up this very special joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And this meeting is open at 6:47.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:47. Today is July the 2nd, and I hereby call to order a joint meeting with City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, I've been told item number one. No, excuse me. We have no citizen comments tonight to be read. So with that, we'll open up agenda item one, conduct a public hearing to solicit comments from citizens and other interested parties concerning the proposed adoption of comprehensive plan Duncanville 2040.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. This is a long time coming. We're going to start off with the presentation from Matt Horn with MRB. And so with further ado, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Matt to begin that presentation and walk us through the draft plan. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor, City Manager, City Council, Planning and Zoning Commission, and everybody who showed up tonight. This is, without a doubt, I think the most unique way we've ever rolled out a comprehensive plan. Raise your hand if you were on the Comprehensive Steering Committee. Raise your hand, Steering Committee. Awesome. Thank you all for your hard work. Keep your hands up. Raise your hand if you participated. Keep your hands up, Steering Committee. Raise your hand if you, I'm going to make you work tonight. I should have said that last. Raise your hand if you participated in a focus group. A focus group is part of the comprehensive plan development. Raise your hand if you came to a public engagement event. Raise your hand if you took a survey. Keep your hands up, everybody. Raise your hand if you took a survey. Raise your hand, raise both hands if you're here tonight. So, one of the things that we really endeavored to do as part of the comprehensive planning process is to bring the public into the process, right? This comprehensive plan was really developed by, in large part, by the steering committee, who dedicated a full year of their time to addressing a bunch of issues, and we'll dig into them. The steering committee dedicated a bunch of time. We released a comprehensive plan survey, which got around 900 responses, one of the largest survey responses we've ever received, so Duncanville is a champion in that regard. We had public engagement events, and all of that was about making sure that when you opened this comprehensive plan, that you saw a little bit of yourself in the comprehensive plan. That you came to a focus group and you said, hey, I think we ought to pay attention to arts and culture district. When we open the plan, we see arts and culture district in the plan, right? That's the idea. or I think Parks and Recreation should be a big part of how our community promotes itself and attracts residents. And hopefully those people see Parks and Recreation in the plan. Those are the kinds of things that we wanted to glean out, what makes Duncanville tick. So, first I'll just say thank you. Thanks again for being here tonight. The comprehensive plan opens with what I think the steering committee recognized as some bold language. And what we wanted to do was really open the plan by kind of laying out what's in front of us and what we've been wrestling with. I call Duncanville in a lot of ways a community of assets, but obscured assets in a lot of ways, right? There's no question that Duncanville's location is strategic, it's unmatched, right? You can be in Bishop Arts, you can be at DFW Airport, you can be at Love Field, you can be anywhere in the metro in no time, depending on what time you leave in the morning, what time you're trying to get home at night. So the location is incredible. The community is diverse, and I'm looking out in this crowd tonight and seeing what I feel is a very representative community. I think you have a very representative council. We had a very representative steering committee, and that diversity is a tremendous strength, and it's going to be a tremendous strength in the future, and we want you to plan to capitalize on that. It's also a full-service community. We talk about in Texas in particular, but really in lots of states where we work, you have these major metro areas, and once 40 or 50 miles outside of a major metro area, sometimes even less than that, it drops off pretty quick in terms of services. The communities that are not attached to larger metro areas have a difficult time providing that full service experience that your residents have come to enjoy. And that's going to be a major attractor. But the trick is, and we'll look at some data in a minute, we haven't really found a way to put all of that together and attract the kind of investment that we've seen in other places in the metro. And so we started picking at that and wondering why that hasn't happened. I want to give credit. Raise your hand if you were at that real estate focus group. I saw you here tonight. I appreciate you being here. We had this convening of real estate professionals in the community, and we said we started talking about growth, how Duncanville has to grow. And somebody said, "Why does Duncanville have to grow? Why should Duncanville grow?" And I thought that was a super compelling question. I really thought it was an outstanding challenge to kind of an underlying assumption that the steering committee started with. And quickly we moved to kind of break it down, right? So what we know, if we look at the last 20 years of cost dynamics across the nation, but really with respect to local government, it gets intensified. From 2010, so let's look at the last 15 years. From 2010 to 2015, the price of everything, right? The price of that basket of goods went up by 47%. 47% from 2010 to 2025. We consulted with some of our economic development folks, and we looked at some nationwide data, some forecasting, and found the forecasters are saying it's likely to continue on that trend. It's likely to continue to increase at that rate. The cost of doing business is likely to continue to go up. A lot influenced by COVID, right? This most recent, say, 5-year period was unbelievable in terms of cost escalation. So we went back and refactored and said, take the last 5 years out and look at it again and give us a forecast. And the forecast was conservatively, costs would go up by 35% over the next 15 years. So we called this plan Duncanville 2040 because we saw it as a 15-year strategy. And so the question was, if the cost of goods and services goes up by 45%, like the federal government says it's going to, or even if it only goes up by 35%, as a super conservative estimate might tell, and we don't do one more thing, don't hire one more police officer, don't build a fire station, don't re-outfit the beautiful field house that we're sitting in today. Don't do one more thing, just keep the tires on, keep the lights on, keep gas in the tank. The cost to our residents is to go up between 35 and 45%. if we don't grow. Because without growth, there's no one there to absorb that cost. And so the mayor would love to just get a poll. Is everybody okay with raising property taxes by 5 to 45% over the next few years? No, the mayor's not interested in that poll. I wouldn't be either. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable to continue to have growth, or to continue to have growth in costs and saddle a fixed group of people that cost, right? So we said, well, all right, that's global or national anyway. What's this really mean locally? What's happened locally? Has Duncanville cool economic bubble and just resilient to those cost escalations over the years? So we went back and looked between 2014 and 2024, so the last 10 years of municipal operation. In the last 10 years, the property tax levy has grown from 13.1 million. Property tax levy is everybody in here who paid property taxes, we kicked it into a big pile. Total property taxes paid in the city of Duncanville in 2014 was 13.1 million. And in 2024, it was 23.8 million. That's an 82% increase. That's almost double what the national inflation is. And so I picked at staff about that. What happened? Did something happen in Duncanville that we're missing? And the answer, bottom line answer was, well, the last 5 years didn't help, compound on compound on compound. But just generally, if you were going to open a business, local government would not be a business you'd want to get into. It depends wholly on staffing, health insurance, vehicles, gasoline, tires, electricity, natural gas, all of that stuff goes into a big pile, and all of the highest growing inflationary measures end up in your local government tax bill, right? So when the city staff gets together to do a budget, what they do is they take all the other revenue sources that are out there, and Duncanville's got a bunch, whether it's fees, sales tax is a big one. We take all of these other revenues and we add them up. And we look at all of our expenses and we say, expenses minus every other revenue is what the property tax levy is going to be, right? So that means if we just take that conservative inflationary measure from the federal government, we're that by 2040, by the time we realize this vision, by 2040, we're going to have to come up with $11 million more just to do what we're doing already. Just to deliver the exact same service delivery. We're going to have to come up with $11 million more. There's only 3 ways to come up with property tax dollars. 3. One is we just raise the rate. Right? You can just raise the property tax rate. That's the way out unless you're on city council. 1 is raise the property tax rate. 2 is growth in the market of existing properties, right? So your property assessment, the county comes out, looks at it and says, yesterday it was worth $100,000, today it's worth $200,000. The problem with that is, the city council holds the rate steady, you end up paying more taxes, right? And then the third way is new growth in the levy, new development in the community. And so we started to ask ourselves, is it reasonable to assume that our friends and neighbors in Duncanville are willing to chip in $11 million more 2040 for doing the exact same thing we're doing right now? And the committee, the steering committee, and a lot of the folks we talked to in the public engagement exercise said absolutely not. That's not what we want to see. So the question stopped being, should we grow? And the question started being, how should we grow? How should we grow? And so I've already heard, and to the people in this room who've already read the comprehensive plan, thank you so much. It means a lot. Not everybody will. Not everybody has. You're part of the process. And we're already receiving feedback, and the feedback we're receiving is wholly around how this community is going to grow and what it looks like at the end. So here's how growth works in Greece, okay? If people are confident in your market, which is to say, if people are confident that if they put $1 into their home, some dollar out. If people are confident that if they put $1 into their business, someday they'll get $1 out. If they're confident in your market, they're going to move here and they're going to invest here. That's one of the main drivers. We talked as a steering committee about You're either a community of choice or you're a community of circumstance, right? A community of choice is, I love Duncanville and I wouldn't live anywhere else. This is the greatest city in the whole Metroplex and beyond. A community of circumstance is, well, my parents are aging and once they pass, we're gonna sell off the house and get out of here, right? I gotta be here because my kids are here. I gotta be here because I asked this question of a steering committee in another community, and people were going through the normal answers. Parents are here, or I love it here. One guy raised his hand. I said, well, why are you here, sir? And he said, well, I'm court ordered to be here. So that's a real circumstance, right? Generally, the folks we want here in terms of a community of choice is confidence in our market. If people are confident they're going to invest, that means we're going to have strong, healthy neighborhoods. That means our real property base is going to be solid. If our real property base is solid, revenue is going to increase to the municipality. And the municipality can invest it in great amenities. Things like the Duncanville Fieldhouse. The community can invest it. And that investment in public amenities and those strong, healthy neighborhoods needs more confidence in the market. So this wheel starts spinning, and it starts spinning all by itself once you hit some momentum. So Duncanville just needs to hit its stride. What we also know is that the market determines who's going to live here. And if the market is strong, then people with capacity will move here. People who can keep up their house, right? People who can invest in businesses. And if the capacity is strong, the mission is going to be strong. We're going to be looking at houses that are taken care of, neighborhoods that are taken care of, businesses are flourishing. If the condition is strong, the image is going to be strong. And I want you to think about Duncanville's front doors. All right, I'll come into Duncanville one way or another. And we'll talk about this in a minute. But Duncanville's image in the region has been a question. It's been a nag at us. Both the image of driving in and maybe not having this development in the world right at our gateways, and the image of us a place to do business, the ability to navigate regulation, the ability to continue to attract investment. When this is working, when the market is bringing people here who can invest, and those who are investing and creating a great condition, and that condition is resulting in a great image, Duncanville is going to shine. Duncanville is going to shine. When it's not, the market's going to attract people who can't put money into their property or won't. And the image is going to erode, and the market's going to erode, right? So our goal here in this whole process was, how do we make the Duncanville market strong enough that people want to invest here? Cities have limited influence, and so we really had to think to ourselves, what's the best place for us to hop onto one of these two wheels? What's the best place for us to hop onto one of these wheels so we can get it moving? And that's what the comprehensive plan is all about. So what we said in that opening statement, our keys to victory are redevelopment. Two words I heard in Duncanville a lot. One was built out, and one was landlocked. So landlocked, you don't get a pass on, because every city in the world is landlocked. That's the nature, right? That's the nature of a municipal boundary. We're all landlocked. Some of us have more. Grand Prairie, that's why it's called Grand Prairie. It's just land for days, right? All kinds of land in Grand Prairie. Duncanville soaked up its land over time. We don't have the land that Grand Prairie has, but Grand Prairie is as landlocked as we are. So built out, we have to challenge. And built out is a man-made issue. So are municipal boundaries, but just follow along. Duncanville is built out because of decisions decisions people have made, right? Laws that we've put into place, projects that we've approved. Those things have resulted in Duncanville being built out, and they're not irreversible. The toughest part about living in a community for a long time, is you start to accept things as forever, right? I tell people when they start a new job, I've got a lot of buddies who are city managers, I say, when you walk City Hall on day one and you see something weird, write it down. Write it down. You don't have to fix it today, but write it down. Because in a week, it's going to be wallpaper. It's just going to be the way things are. And when you drive down some of these corridors out to town, you thought, man, we can do better than that. And now, probably 6 days out of 7 or 28 days out of 30, you're just driving. You're on autopilot, you're trying to get home, right? And so we know that redevelopment is key. Taking some of those properties that are beat up, those plazas and some of those other kind of old school business properties that haven't seen much attention over the years, and scraping them off and starting over, or redevelop around their bones. A lot of them still have real good bones. So redevelopment is key. Can't have redevelopment unless you're prepared to welcome investment. So the first job we ever did in Duncanville was an economic development organizational assessment. We interviewed 40 business owners in the Duncanville community. And all of them had a story about issues they faced trying to get a business open in Duncanville. And they said, man, I'm here wanting to spend money. I'm here wanting to create a business for you. You said you wanted a restaurant, and now you're dragging me through the mud to try and get this restaurant open. And so when we dug at it, the regulations aren't any worse than any place else, right? That's not, regulation's regulation. We can get better, but what was missing was that welcoming sense, that a business walked in the door and they felt like, these guys really want me here, and they're gonna move my project across the finish line. Now, since those days, the city has already taken major steps to overhaul that. And they've reorganized, and they've hired some new talent, and they've brought people to the table with the customer service mentality, this investor relationship mentality. That's gotta stay. We have to be open for business. But not every business, we don't have to fall over backwards to welcome in the businesses that don't align with our vision. That's why we have rules. That's why we have zoning and development regulations. But if we're going to, if we have a vision and those projects show up that align with our vision, we should be welcome. Financial sustainability. That 82% increase between 2014 and 2024 is not sustainable. We can't do it again. We can't increase the property tax levy at that rate again. Financial sustainability has a lot of keys to it about, but it means saying no more than we say yes. It means accepting near-term pain for long-term reward, right? And so we're gonna have to make some difficult decisions. And when we talk about financial sustainability or financial solvency, I always make sure that I remind decision makers, this doesn't mean we need to be the cheapest place in the Metroplex. It actually probably means something way different than that. But it does mean we have to invest in catalytic projects that are gonna turn into 3 more projects. These are catalytic investments. That's gonna require prioritization and focus. You're gonna see those words throughout this plan a lot. We gotta pick a spot and get the heck out of that spot. And we have to really focus our efforts, whether it's infrastructure investment or staffing, you name it. We have to focus and we have to prioritize. Prioritizing means saying no more than we say yes for the time being. And then finally, accountability. Accountability is this. Accountability is this. You all came here tonight. You're going to hear a bunch of stuff. The council's going to make some decisions on it. They're going to adopt it. And then you're going to hold them accountable. You're going to show up and say, you said you were going to be welcoming to investment, but you didn't carry through with that promise. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So how the plan got developed, the council and the DC EDC came together and selected our firm to facilitate the plan development, and facilitate is the key word here. The heavy lifting was done by the steering committee. They made the decisions, they brainstormed, they reviewed the data. They told us what would work in Duncanville. The DC EDC did the important part, that was paying the bill, so good job on that. And then this steering committee, which include representation from council, representation from P&Z, from the DC EDC, from staff, from the community, met once a month for about a year. In those meetings, we looked at data. We're going to look at some of that data tonight. We believe in making decisions based on data. You can't make decisions based on your gut. Duncanville's too big. If we miss, we're going to miss big. So make decisions based on data. Hear from the public. Understand what the public has to say. There's 900 surveys. The committee had to review those and understand what it is the public was looking for. Best practices. We did come to the table and say, hey, here's what's working here or there. In our focus groups, we heard from real estate folks saying, here's what's working here or there. We heard from other economic developers in the region. Here's what's working here or there. And prioritization and focus. Again, we can't put everything in the plan, so what are we going to put in the plan? We had a project website. That project website is still live, DuncanvilleCompPlan.com. Go there. If you haven't already got your copy of comp plan, that comp plan is on that website. So go there and check it out. Social media, the city was fantastic. The city's communications team kept pumping out social media. You probably saw the announcements, particularly for this event. We had 2 public forums, survey. So what did the public say to us in this process? Have to improve Duncanville's image in the region. We want people to look at Duncanville and say, yes, that's where we want to put our investment. Economic development, and placemaking, and those two sometimes often go hand in hand. Economic development, we'll talk more about in a minute. Placemaking, we just talked about scrubbing up those tougher areas of the community. Strengthening the housing market. People aren't going to end in a place where they're not confident. We just talked about that. And then investments in city parks and facilities. People are so proud of Duncanville's parks. I was over at City Hall a week or so ago on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. That park was full. People walking and running and just hanging out, enjoying it. They love that. They love the parks. They love the field house. They said, do more of that. So we had to build a skeleton for this comprehensive plan. And the skeleton is what we call our planning foundations. The components of the skeleton are our vision. Our vision is a clear statement about where we want to be 15 years from today. Where we want to be, where Duncan will be if we execute on these plan activities. We asked for planning principles. Planning principles are these guardrails that say, here's how we're going to make decisions, because here's what's going to happen. Everybody here tonight is going to unanimously say it was the greatest presentation we've ever heard, and we don't even need to read the rest of the plan. Council, you can adopt it tonight. Council's going to adopt the comprehensive plan. And then tomorrow, somebody's going to walk in with an idea that's not in the comprehensive plan. Right? And so we see prioritization and focus, but we can't shut down. The steering committee, very smart people, but they couldn't have thought of everything. So if somebody comes in with a better idea than what's in the comp plan, we have to have a way to judge that. We have to have a way to judge whether that idea aligns. That's what planning principles are. They're going to help us judge that. And then finally, these prior policy areas are the big chunky things that we're going to work on over the next 15 years to get us closer to our vision. So I won't read this vision word for word, but I'll call out some words that I love in this vision that the steering committee wrote and did a great job. Forward thinking, resident focused, promoting connectedness, the charm of a small town, diverse, thriving neighborhoods, accessible recreational amenities, world-class educational opportunities. Downtown, a civic, cultural, and commercial hub, a distinctive mix of locally owned shopping. Opportunities for me work, bustling, lively, urban design, creative placemaking. Our corridors, the front door, this is critical. When you drive into Duncanville, we want you not to just get gas and get back on I-20. We want you to come on in. So those front doors are critical. They're going to leave a lasting positive impression of Duncanville. Infill, high quality redevelopment. Duncanville represents the perfect of innovation and tradition. We heard from people who lived here for a long time. We heard from people who lived here their whole lives and their families that lived here for generations. And what they told us was, we can't give up the traditions of Duncanville, but we recognize that we have to change. And so how do we grow and grow inclusively? Inclusive of those traditions, inclusive of a diverse population. That's the critical piece, right? So our planning principles. Someone walks in tomorrow and says, hey, that comp plan looks great. Appreciate all the work y'all did on it. But I think we need a roller coaster in Armstrong Park. I think that's the first investment we need. We're going to put a roller coaster in Armstrong Park. So the council can't just, to that one you can say no if you want. The council's not just going to say no. What they're going to do is ask staff to evaluate that proposal based on these 4 planning principles and based on how that project gets closer to our vision faster than some other thing in the comp plan. Because what we know is if we add stuff to the list, we got to take stuff off the list. That's prioritization and focus, right? And so the roller coaster, Richard's gonna take a look at the roller coaster's business plan and see if the city's investment is fiscally responsible. Does it make sense? Are we gonna earn some kind of return on our investment? Is it innovative? I promise you'll be the only city in the Metroplex that has a roller. But just because you're the only one who has it doesn't mean you should have it, right? So that doesn't make it innovative. Is it innovative? Fiscal responsibility, again, does not mean we are the cheapest place to live in the Metroplex. That's not what that means. What it means is we make it in catalytic projects, in things that are gonna move us fastest toward our vision. Innovation does not mean change for change's sake. And I appreciated a public comment that I heard that said somebody brought this idea from some other place and marched it in here and popped it right in our comp plan. That by itself is not innovation. Doesn't mean it's wrong or right, but innovation is course changing. Innovation means Duncanville was doing this and now it's doing this. So how does that roller coaster make us do this? Inclusion means anybody who shares our values, shares our vision, should be able to have a place in the, right? And shares our values doesn't mean, or shares our principles, I should say, doesn't mean blindly follows us because it says so in the comp plan. It means, are you here because you believe that Duncanville should be a fiscally responsible community, that Duncanville should be inclusive, that Duncanville should be innovative and resilient? Inclusion means if you want to be in Duncanville, you can be in Duncanville. We're going to find a way to make it work. Inclusion means we're going to look at poverty rate in a minute. The Duncanville poverty rate is 10%, which isn't horrible. But about 1,400 families live in poverty in Duncanville. So, 1,400 people, I should say. So, if the poverty rate is 10%, there's two ways to lower the poverty rate. Grow people out of poverty, or move them out, make it unsustainable for them to live here. That's not the kind of growth the steering committee envisioned. We want to be inclusive. And resilient means a bunch of different things. Resilient means when the next pandemic shows up 500 years from now, we're all not worried about it. When the next pandemic shows up, Duncanville bounces back that much faster. If the flood happens, it bounces back that much faster. It means financially resilient, able to withstand these issues. It means environmentally resilient. So we're gonna bounce back from challenges. And then we got our priority policy areas, which I won't read on this slide, but we had to focus. And so we had a couple of big chunky areas where we're gonna put our focus. These are the areas that we think, that the steering committee thinks, is gonna move Duncanville toward its vision the fastest. So what's going on in Duncanville today? We asked the steering committee, what we like to do is index ourselves against somebody. So we asked the steering committee, who should we be comparing ourselves to? Who are the people in the market that we compare ourselves to? And they picked a group that's affectionately known as the Best Southwest, right? I don't know if you've all heard that term. The Best Southwest, among others, but Duncanville considers its peers, the city of Cedar Hill, the city of DeSoto, the city of Lancaster, and then we also just looked at the MSA, the DFW Metroplex as a whole. Duncanville is growing 5 times slower than our closest neighbor. Duncanville's population between 2010 and 2004 increased 2-3%. The slowest community in the Metroplex in the Best Southwest besides Duncanville was Cedar Hill, and they grew by 11% in that same time frame. Now we're just talking about numbers, right? We can just make numbers happen. That's not necessarily a good thing, but at the end of the day, it's clearly not at the rate that is going to be sustainable. Worse, we asked the geniuses up at the federal government to tell us what's going to happen in the next 10 years. What's going to happen in the next 10 years in this region? Duncanville is forecasted to lose population in the next 10 years, right? If we keep going on the trend we're going, the economists say we'll lose population. Cedar Hill is going to eke it out about even. DeSoto is going to eke it out about even. Lancaster is going to eke it out. The Metroplex is going to grow like crazy because that's what the Metroplex does. Duncanville is forecast to lose. Could they get it wrong? Sure. But I don't like the fact that they're looking at us and our neighbors and saying, you're the ones that are going to lose. The analysis is not something that I'm excited about. We can make excuses for numbers and why things happen. My dad has that saying that a lot of folks in generation have, figures lie and liars figure, right? So we don't get too hung up on it, but when they compare us to our neighbors, they're in a position that we don't want to be in. Income. So I said the poverty rate's is only about 10%. If you're in poverty, only is not a good word to use, right? It's 10%. But there's a federal government calculation for poverty, and that calculation is different than my definition of hard times. 37% of Duncanville households earn less than $50,000 per year. We're going to talk about why that number is important in a minute, but it's important enough probably on its face, but 37%. The only one beating us on that is Lancaster is a bit higher than that, but 37% is tough. That means a third of residents or a third of our households are earning less than $50,000 a year. So that's a number to pay attention to. There's that poverty rate, about 1,400 households below poverty level of West households, sorry about that. All these numbers, these are at-risk populations. They're all about on par with the region. There's nothing that jumps way out at us. Duncanville is in there on these. Somebody in the back read this slide? This was the dumbest slide I put in this whole package. But I'll tell you what it says anyway. The top 3 industries in Duncanville are government, other service industries, and healthcare. Between those 3, it makes up close to 50% of your workforce of the jobs in Duncanville. And that's about on par for the region. I'm sorry, I just read the wrong slide. It makes up about 25%, just those 3 make up about 25%. It makes up about 50% of the DFW region. This is a number I love. This is my favorite slide in any PowerPoint. This is the number of people who drive to work every day, to work in Duncanville, the number of people who drive out of here to go to work, and the number of people who live and work here. So the reason I love this number so much is if I told you 9,777, that sounds accurate, somebody really sat on the road and counted these, 9,777 people who are coming into Duncanville every morning. Those are the people that I can grab to live in Duncanville. If I told you I'm going to shoot an hour or 2 off of your commute every day, would that change your mind about Duncanville? If there was housing, if there were shopping opportunities and the rest. This other number, 16,911 people getting in their car in Duncanville and driving someplace else to work. When we dig at that and analyze who those people are, we might be able to court industry and say, hey, we have a very high concentration of this type of profession. We could work with our school district, work with others to say, how do we keep this training going so that we can attract industry to Duncanville? And by that I just mean business. Attract business to Duncanville because we've got a 17,000 person workforce who's just getting out of here every morning. How do we do that? These are some housing numbers. About 65% of Duncanville residents own their home. That's about on par with the region. That's a good number. About 31% are owner occupied. About 74% of Duncanville housing is single family residential. We'll talk about that in a minute too. And it drops off pretty precipitously from there, but the 2 is about 4%, and that's a townhome or a duplex or something like that. Tough numbers. Duncanville had its building heyday between 1960 and 1990. So roughly about 75% of the houses built in Duncanville were built during that time frame. So about 20% were built between 1960 and 1969, and another 35% between 1970 and 1979. So a pretty solid amount of our homes, over 50%, are over 50 years old. And it shows, right? We've seen that in some pockets. So remember the number I just gave you, way back here. 37% of Duncanville residents earn less, 37% of Duncanville households earn less than $50,000 per year. Again, our friends at the federal government have this calculation that they do. They call it housing burden. They want you to spend less than a third of your income on the total cost of housing for yourself. Beyond that, you start to sacrifice other things. your life becomes stressed, and these are not healthy households. So if 37% of Duncanville residents make less than $50,000, what the other side of the market data says is to rent typical housing in Duncanville and not be cost burdened. To rent, you have to make $58,000. So 37% of the people in Duncanville cannot afford to rent a typical unit in Duncanville without being cost burdened. To own a home in Duncanville, your household income has to be about $84,000. Beyond that, you become cost burdened, right? And so those numbers aren't lining up for us. We need to think through that. So we're growing slower than our neighbors. We've got a good crew of commuters who are coming in every day, so we can think about that as a possible positive in terms of opportunities for growth. But our housing costs are outstripping residents' ability and to not be cost burdened. So what are we going to do about all this? That's great information. What are we going to do about it? Our priority policy areas, those things we're going to work on the hardest, that we're going to spend all of our discretionary time and resources on. Healthy, creative communities. We're going to foster active recreation in the arts. We're going to create an inviting and beautiful community with a strong park system, connectivity to the region and the recreational amenities there, support for the arts, and collaboration with partners like DISD and others to make sure that we're reinforcing a whole network of cultural resources, active recreation resources. During the process, the plan development process, we heard an amazing presentation about this arts and culture district concept. The comprehensive plan calls on City Council to support that concept. The arts and culture district, which is largely anchored around Armstrong Park and downtown. We need to create a district master plan. The district master plan lays out what the district looks like physically and how the district's going to operate financially. And so that's a priority in the comprehensive plan. We want to create a parks and trails master plan. We want to understand what our residents are looking for when it comes to parks. We want to know what neighborhoods are not well served by parks. We want to know how we can connect parks and trails both to one another and to regional amenities. That's what a parks and trails master plan will do. We want to collaborate with the school district on amenities, programs, facilities. The heartbreaking thing in the world is for the city to struggle trying to put fields or ball courts into play and for the schools to be empty all weekend and locked up, right? If we can collaborate, if we can find work together and program these things out, we can get twice the bang for our buck. Neighborhoods, livable neighborhoods. We want to ensure that all Duncanville residents have safe housing in vibrant neighborhoods. That means we have to diversify the housing stock. We just got finished saying that 37% of our residents cannot afford to rent a home in Duncanville. We got to figure that out. A way to figure that out is to diversify the housing stock. We have to think about how to support residents in need for upgrades to their homes, right? We think about aging residents who haven't been able to keep up with the cost of investing, new home buyers who aren't able to afford to outlay the capital it needs to do the upgrades to their homes. That affects everyone, right? When your neighbor's home isn't being kept up, that affects your property value too. That affects your neighborhood vitality too. So we got to figure out a way to help our neighbors. Update rankings, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but what that basically means is we'll show you a map in a moment that shows how Duncanville lays out residentially, although you know that, you don't need to see a map to know that. But the regulations in Duncanville don't allow for much of a variety or much creativity in the development of new housing. So we want to talk about that. We want to proactively address issues affecting neighborhood health. That's things like parks and recreation and other amenities and connectivity to assets and community-wide amenities. And then multimodal access. There was a stat back there that only about 4% of Duncanville residents live in a household without a car. Again, only is a cruddy word to say, because if you're one of those 4%, you got a problem living in a household without a car. Particularly in a community that requires a car to get everywhere. But even beyond that, attracting the next generation of home buyers or the next generation of investors, they're looking for things like multimodal access. How can we advance that? So to do that, we're going to recommend that you update zoning regulations. Look at your zoning and ask yourself, where are there opportunities for housing diversity and infill development? We're going to talk more about this in a moment. But the question, this goes back to built out. If we accept the premise of built out, then everyone in here is just gonna pay more in property taxes. So updating those zoning regulations and providing for some diversity in housing might give us the opportunity to bring some more folks into the town. Incentive zoning is this idea that, hey, if a developer wants to be here and wants to take advantage of an asset that we've got, whether it's high quality water and sewer service, or whether it's a great spot in the neighborhood where he needs a little more density to make his project work, he needs to kick in. We want him to support upgrades to parks and trails, upgrades to sidewalks, upgrades to street lighting, because we're all partners here. And so incentive zoning helps get there. And then creating neighborhood revitalization strategies. What this is really about is everyone here lives in a neighborhood. City council needs to understand what to see in your neighborhood. And so we want you to create a we want you to work with your neighbors and say, this is the kind of neighborhood we want this to be. And there are plenty of neighborhoods out there that are going to say, we are set. This is exactly the kind of neighborhood we want to be. And there might be room, like there is room for that, right? And then there are some neighborhoods that will say, we need a park, we need more sidewalks, or we need more trails, or we need more bike lanes, or we need more access to fresh food, or any of these other things. And this plan allows for some self-driven planning by neighborhoods. Economic and community development. We want to promote a culture that engages residents in wealth building. Meaningful work, that's a word I love in that vision statement, meaningful work. To get there, we have to improve Duncanville and its image as a place to do business. I want people singing from the rooftops about how much the city worked with them to move their project across the finish line, right? We have to make some changes in how the staff are aligned, to make some changes in the regulation, in our processes, and then we have to tell everybody about it. The great thing about the comprehensive plan is we'll be singing this from the rooftops. We'll be telling the Metroplex and everybody else, this is the kind of place we want Duncanville to be. So that goes into improving our regional image, fostering business growth in the community. I'll talk about that in a moment. Strategic infill. There's a map in the plan that looks at areas on the community that aren't parks or green spaces or stormwater ponds, where you could increase density, where you could add some more value to the tax base, some more housing, some more business investment opportunity. Areas that are underbuilt or have outgrown their useful lives, and you can give a few of those in the community. We want a diverse base of businesses. A great thing about Duncanville is there isn't one behemoth employer. If they turn over because of some global economic condition, Duncanville's out of business. We're resilient in that way. We want to continue to be resilient in that way. And then we talked about streamlined development processes. So how we're going to do that? The DCEDC, in Duncanville you have, where's the DCEDC? Raise your hand if you're on that board. Thank you all, thanks for being here. The DCEDC has a tremendous resource in this sales tax funding stream. And what we need to do is focus that funding stream on projects that align with our economic development strategy. So what we'd love to see is a prioritized work plan for the DCEDC. Instead of just having people line up to say, I need some money, we'd like to do a call out and say, the DCEDC intends to fund these kinds of projects in these areas of the community, and we'd like for you to come in. And you can do a balanced approach where you still invite just the random project in because we know we don't know everything, but you're going to focus your investment on those priorities. We're going to organize staff in a better way. We're going to target redevelopment. We're going to focus on downtown and the corridors. I want relentless focus on downtown and the corridors for two reasons. The steering committee believes downtown to be an economic engine, right? That's going to churn investment, going to keep attracting people. It's what will set Duncanville apart from your neighbors. And two, those corridors, because no one's going to go down if they pull in and see what they see today. They're going to get off, they're going to get gas, they're going to get back on. Right? So we want to have these attractive entrances as we come into downtown, or into Duncanville, period. Who here's on the TIF board? TIF board, I thought I saw some back there. So the TIF board is another unique creation. It's an area of the community where the city said, this is where we want to focus growth. And they created a funding mechanism that'll allow for that. That'll offer a sustainable way to develop in the community. And the TIF District Strategic Plan is the first investment we'd ask the city to make in that regard. And the strategic plan is gonna say, here's a budget, here are the parcels we wanna see redeveloped, here's the type of redevelopment we wanna see on those parcels, and, right? Integrated natural and built environment for growth without compromising beauty. The feedback that we've gotten so far, people said to us, I moved to Duncanville because of the way it's laid out. I moved to Duncanville because there's beautiful parks and beautiful green spaces. And you're gonna jam it up with a bunch of stuff, a bunch of new development just so we don't have to pay higher taxes later? Promoting growth without compromising beauty. So we're gonna update our regulations. We're gonna mitigate sprawl. So sprawl was a question before, right? Sprawl, just so you know, really just means a development pattern that does not optimize revenue and economic activity to the community, right? So if we've got acres and acres of squat 1975 strip malls with acres of asphalt that used to be striped, but it's worn down pretty good now, is that the best use of that property? Probably not. Could we generate more economic activity if we redevelop that property? Probably could. That's what we mean when we say sprawl. Mitigating sprawl, to me, just means taking underdeveloped property and transitioning it into a better future, right? We got to think about extreme weather. We've seen our neighbors in Texas dealing with these, they call them atmospheric rivers. Months worth of rain that falls in hours, right? We need to protect Duncanville from that. And that means we're going to have to deliver infrastructure a little differently. We're going to think about development a little bit differently, right? And that means using what we call green infrastructure, which is just a way of saying, how do we capture that stormwater? It floods out streets, before it floods out neighbors' homes. How do we capture it and treat it and put it back into the ecosystem better than we found it? Urban design elements. This draws attention too, because if I told this room to close your eyes, picture urban, you'd have a real picture in your mind, wouldn't you? You'd be thinking about Dallas, or Fort Worth, or Austin. Those are certainly places that you might consider urban. But here in downtown Lancaster, urban, I see buildings that provide for pedestrian access. I see shade. I see public seating. I see outdoor dining opportunities. Buildings that address the street, that come right to the road. That's urban to me. That building is one story, but I would still call that strong urban design, right? Bishop Arts. This was the #1 word uttered to me while I was in Duncanville on this project. Have you been to Bishop Arts? Have you checked it? You gotta see Bishop Arts. Check it out. So we went down to Bishop Arts, and they're right. They're right. You gotta see it. It's doing what it should be doing. It's generating economic activity. And it's doing it in a way that captures this cool urban design vibe, right? Again, buildings right up on the street, nice sidewalks, transparent storefronts so people can walk by and look in and see what's going on in the store. There's some more outdoor dining over there, good signage, light. These are all urban elements. Duncanville. Duncanville's got some unique urban areas, and I think Main Station is one of those, right? Main Station created some density on this corner, on a key transportation corridor with good urban design, some transparency, some mixed use with a few apartments upstairs and some nice dining and shopping downstairs, addressing the front, accessible. That's good urban design. That's strong urban design. So I can tell you without question, we are not promoting 10-story glass-faced buildings in Duncanville, downtown or elsewhere. The steering committee was thinking about dense, urban, styled buildings. How are we gonna get there? We're gonna create and implement site design standards. This basically says, hey, if you're gonna build in downtown, build in one of our corridors, here's how your building's gonna look. They're gonna address the street and contain urban elements. We're gonna evaluate complete streets elements to address stormwater. We're gonna give folks a guidebook, a pathway to getting to green infrastructure. An urban forest master plan, this is how do we protect all those great green areas around the community? That urban forest master plan will tell us how to do that. And then a zoning update to bring us back to some of these nice urban concepts. Downtown vitality, promote small business, strategic fill, which we've talked about, urban design, which we've talked about, public art, placemaking, and collaboration. Downtown is the jewel. We talked about economic development, then we talked about downtown because we think it's that important, right? What we're gonna do is update the Main Street Master Plan. The night we got hired, the mayor pulled me aside and said, we built a master plan years ago, we didn't do anything with it. And so we gotta update, we gotta make sure that it's actionable and that we can invest in it. We wanna focus our investment. The DCEDC wants to focus incentives and resources on projects that bring strong urban design. That doesn't mean building a new building, scraping off the building, sitting back off the road. We can't do that today. How do we bring elements of the building out the street? How do we create some outdoor seating? How do we create some lighting and some vegetation that makes folks feel like the buildings are close? And we want to promote spaces throughout downtown for events and public art. That's key. Public art as a backbone to our identity. Equitable transportation, we want to encourage walkability citywide. Citywide, downtown's important, certainly, but around the city, we want our neighbors to be able to bike and walk to parks, to schools. We want to right-size road infrastructure. All that means is, can we get pedestrians across the street without having to go into a dead sprint? Any ever go into a dead sprint with a baby carriage trying to get across 6 lanes of traffic? It's not fun. So how do we do that? We right-size road infrastructure without impacting capacity, right? Without impacting capacity. That means we can move the traffic, same traffic through there, even after it's right-sized. And then streetscaping as placemaking, making sure that even our roads have an identity. Complete Streets Master Plan, the city's got a Complete Streets policy. We want to lay that out. Focus on the corridors. We want a Route 67 corridor master plan. That's a big front door. And we want that looking sharp. We want to partner on mass transit. And we want to make sure that people who have electric vehicles can find a place in Duncanville to charge them and that they're close to amenities so we can pick their pockets before they leave town too. Fiscal responsibility structure, value for taxpayer investment. Everybody who's sitting in here today is a taxpayer, one way or another. If you're a renter, I promise you your landlord did not comp your taxes. He built that into your rent. So we want to make everybody in Duncanville got good value for taxpayer investment. We're going to focus infrastructure investment in targeted growth areas. We can't spread out our investment in infrastructure all over the place. Where do we want to grow? Make sure water and sewer capacity is there. Make sure stormwater. Start there. Think about the long-term costs of infrastructure facilities. When you build a park, plan to operate the park. Plan to operate your civic facilities. Because otherwise, we're just coming back in 20 years and doing it all over. Evaluate innovative and sustainable approaches, and evaluate public partnership opportunities. Are there business partners out there who would support us in delivering new programs and services? This building is one huge public-private partnership. I see all the partners around the building as we walk through. Water, sewer, and stormwater assessments. DPW is way out in front of us on this. They got started on this, or they're getting started on this now. Engineering design standards. As you drive around Duncanville, you can figure out when the DPW director changed because the street profile changed, right? It looks different from one director to the next because we don't have a set of engineering design standards. Invest in a capital improvement plan. Lay out your investments that you want to make over a 5-year period and keep investing in. Use public-private partnerships and talk to the community about how you're investing their dollars. That's a big part of public trust, is just knowing that you said we're going to do this, you did it or you didn't, and why, right? Land use. We talked about sprawl. The prior zoning kind of let properties underdevelop, or the current zoning lets properties underdevelop. But particularly at key entrances and corridors, the growth was unsustainable. It's not out of land. We're built out. You all said it, I didn't. We're built out. And it's unsustainable. And so we need modernized codes. This is how Duncanville breaks out today. We won't go through every color here, but the yellowish, greenish, I'm the world's most colorblind man as well. The yellowish, greenish, this stuff, that's single-family housing in large part. Right? That's 70% of single-family housing spread out kind of all through the community. And this is get a little bit more intense as you get into downtown and on the corridors. That's land use. That's what's happening on the ground today. That's actual. Zoning is what the law says can happen on the ground today. It's not always the same. Zoning follows land use a lot of times. But still, I mean, looking back again at residential, all of these kind of yellowish shaded areas are single-family residential neighborhoods by zoning, by right. In the future, we don't see much of a change when it comes to what we've called traditional neighborhood residential. What we have said in that traditional neighborhood residential is you can have a mix of housing types, be some small-scale mixed-use development, where development aligns with current character, right? And so what that means is nobody is suggesting we put a Walmart right there, right? Nobody's suggesting we put a gas station right there, right? It doesn't make sense. It would destroy the neighborhood character. But is there opportunity to do a little bit of commercial along these key corridors? Possibly. You can look at it. Is there opportunity to densify on the corridors? Possibly. Maybe. So the yellowish is the traditional neighborhood residential. The gateway corridors, strong urban design on those gateway corridors. We want folks paying attention to how Duncanville's front doors look. Downtown, and then the Main Street corridor, and strong urban design in these areas. So how we're gonna get there, we're gonna treat corridors like our front doors. We're gonna enhance mixed uses in downtown and on Main Street. Gentle densification basically means we're not gonna storm into a neighborhood and throw up a bunch of apartment buildings and townhouses if it doesn't fit. Gentle densification means how do we get some more units where it makes sense and incrementally. And we're gonna focus on uses and these that maximize value per acre. So again, look at some of these tough shopping centers, right? Value per acre is minimal because 80% of the acreage is parking that nobody's parking in because the stores are vacant. And so we're not getting any value for acre in those areas. How are we gonna do this? We need community partners. We need you at the table. And so what we want to do is, when council adopts this, my dream, really lame local government dream is that every council meeting, Councilman Pennybaker is looking through the comp plan to make sure that the thing staff is asking for aligns with the vision and the planning principles. That the P&Z folks are thumbing through that as they're considering new development applications. The DCEDC is creating its work plan in alignment with that. That's step one. We want to do information sharing and events with boards and commissions and committees. How do you use this thing to advance your own goals and strategies? And then we've recommended a citizen-led committee similar to the steering committee, but a permanent fixture, whose job it is to meet every month and understand how the city is moving this process forward. So we'll hear from folks tonight and continue to hear folks. We will work with council on their plan for adoption, which would happen in the next couple of months as we continue to refine and make sure it's in the shape that council is ready to adopt. Staff is going to create action plans that say, we will know we are successful in this when these things happen. So each staff department's creating its action plan around the comp plan. Council, the implementation committee, and that committee will review and assess and review and assess and hold the community accountable to implementation. The Duncanville of tomorrow, perfect blend of innovation and tradition. A leader. People are going to look at Duncanville and say, how do we get more like Duncanville? How do we become more like Duncanville? Financially and economically flourishing, those are two different things. Financially means our audits look great, our fund balances are jacked, we've got reserves for all of our capital improvement stuff. And economically means our neighbors are economically sound. They feel comfortable. They're spending the right amount of money on their housing. They're getting returns for their investment. And the last sentence was a beacon of principled leadership, disciplined management, and unmatched quality of life. Principled leadership are these folks here who are going to act on the plan. Disciplined management are the staff who are going to curate and move those tasks forward. And unmatched quality of life is our reward. Welcome home. Welcome to the Duncanville.
thank you, Matt. It was a description of all the work that so many people have been involved in for many, many months now, so thank you. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing, give the audience a chance to ask the questions at 7:52. And with that, Acting City Manager Abernathy will go help field the questions.
Yes, Mayor, we're going to give the mic over here to Bart and some of our team. We'll just make sure everybody gets a chance to speak and give their comments. So, Bart, I'm going to hand it over to you.
How y'all doing? My name is Omari Wright. On this plan, I didn't see anything addressing programs like at-risk youth or really investing in businesses like a small business resource center, because I saw a lot of things talking about investing in property, but we're not investing in people. And that percentage you're talking about, that's what we need to invest in if we're talking about upscaling so they can afford the things, no matter how much we build up. If the people don't have jobs, the people don't have training, we have no programs for 18 and up. We should have something like a small business resource center to help these businesses that are already established become better. Because Texas is a place where you're not going to get a lot of walking traffic. So we need to educate businesses on how to do the marketing better. There's a lot of help and a lot of funding we should be putting in people and businesses and not just building up parks. Because you can have the park, but we're still going to have these homeless and people that don't have stuff that's going to tear it down. So I see a lot, like I said, in the last comprehensive didn't have the same thing. We're not investing in people, and that's a big problem.
Appreciate that insight, and I think we can be more aggressive in the plan language about how we get that done. Thank you. Thanks for that.
My daughter is starting at Village Tech, and we're looking at renting something near there. And I noticed it is not walkable because of that bridge. They cannot walk on the street. They would have to have a sidewalk right there. There is none, and it would be good to have that area. It's on Duncanville. Not exactly sure exactly what. Cedar Hill Road and Duncanville, right there. I'm like, she can't cross the street safely and walk on the other side because the bridge is on both sides and there's a walkway on either side. She has to be driven every single day. She wouldn't be able, even if we live one block, she wouldn't be able to walk that one block. I'd have to drive her every day. Hello, I'm Ruth Karuba and I'm 1316 Scott Drive in Cedar Hill.
Thanks for that. Good insight. We found similar conditions around.
Hello, my name is Juan Murray. I'm also interested. Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Hi. I have to ask a question concerning like what is the vision for the education? Okay, you named off a lot of numbers where you were saying that close to like 17,000 of the population here steps out and goes to work somewhere else, and close to about 10,000 individuals come here to work. So on those numbers, I'd like to know the educated, vocational trained individuals that are leaving to work somewhere else? Or is it somebody else coming here to run this community? You know, how do those numbers match up? And what are you actually doing about that? I mean, I would want to educate the individuals here to keep them here. I would want that they're qualified and have the trades to actually work here versus having somebody else coming over here and govern this community. Or having our community having to go govern somewhere else. It just doesn't make any sense. And I was at some of the numbers right now. If the homes were built 50 to 60 years ago, right, then that means a lot of those homes they're gonna be breaking down. They're gonna need a lot of development. But if those decisions were made 40, 50 years ago, y'all are for build now for 11 million, then I mean, that just means that there's gonna be another bill that we're gonna pass on to our children or grandchildren, you know, where there's 15 now. So forward thinking, what I would be doing, I would be trying to educate the individuals now, make sure that we do have a strong workforce. But I mean, I really didn't hear anything at all about that. You know, I know you mentioned it and you need to speak on it, but it should have been like something to really focus on, because if you don't have educated individuals here, then that means that 37% of the individuals that you said can't afford a home, that means those numbers are just gonna increase. And somebody else is gonna have to fit, but not 11 million, maybe 15 million, 20 million, because everybody, you just can't have a few people footing that bill. It doesn't make sense. The numbers don't add up. It really doesn't. You should be educated more on vocational trades, because if 37% can't even afford a home or rent a home, I mean, honestly, y'all ask yourselves how many on here are making more than 100,000 a year. And if you fall up under that number where you can't even make 100,000 a year, I mean, if another pandemic hit or something else where you couldn't even afford your home, how many of you are gonna be out of a home? And those your children, grandchildren that you're talking about, be educated, they're not gonna be getting a vocational trade. Where are they gonna be working at? Honestly, if the leaders aren't focusing on that, then I mean, if you wanna build another park, another sidewalk, if that's more important to you than actually really focusing on education and vocational trades, it's not, it just doesn't add up to me.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Hollingsworth. I live at 234 Brookwood Drive. I'm just curious about the corridor. Are they going to be prioritized, and what are some of the things that you're thinking about doing to improve them? And I specifically wonder about West Ridge. It starts out at a 4-lane and then it goes down to a 2-lane, and I'm wondering if that is considered to be a corridor, because it comes in off of Clark, which goes on 408. But anyway, I'm just curious about the corridors.
Thanks for that. The premise is that each corridor begins with a master plan, and that's when those questions get answered specifically. But the plan itself calls for improving building conditions, adding or provide for a mix of uses on the corridor, and a number of other amenities that have to get sorted out corridor by corridor. The prioritization that was laid out in the plan was the TIF district and Highway 67, but it does go on to say, and other corridors as to be addressed. So those are the two priorities that were highlighted. I'm sorry, and I-20 service, the other one.
My name is Christy Shaw. I live at 938 Greenwich Drive. And one of my concerns is the plan is for that Duncanville and Duncanville Road, that empty field has been empty for years. And it's like an eyesore, you know? And I think if we want to attract more people to come, more progressive people, we have to make Duncanville more appealing, especially on the 67 road in. When people are coming in, they're going in there, bypassing, either going to DeSoto or they're going to Cedar Hill. And I think just upgrading that area and then filling in that infield to be more appealing, having more attractions that would attract people. I know for a while we was concerned about crime. I don't think Duncanville is a safe place. I've been living here for years. I mean, I've been living here a long time, and Duncanville hasn't had any major crime here. And I think it's about time for Duncanville to move forward. If those numbers of what we see now and the surrounding areas are catching on and they're bringing in more business, and Duncanville could do the same thing. It's just creating a plan to revitalize certain areas to bring in more businesses to curtail the taxes that we have to show each year. So I think that's one of the areas I think I'd like to see the city move forward, is attracting more businesses, and just especially that area that I saw on Duncanville and Duncanville Road. It's been empty for a long time, and the city owns that. And we need to have something placed there to help the city and attract more people who want to stay here. You know, educated people, we want to have something to go to rather than just go and go to another city to have some sort of enjoyment. Appreciate it.
Judy Hollingsworth, I'm Kim's wife, so I live at 234 Brook. You mentioned that you had a group of small business owners that came together to talk about the problems that happened with some of the rules and regulations. And I keep hearing them. I keep hearing it from, I go to a chiropractor, trying to set up his chiropractic business. He has been hassled in a whole bunch of ways that have really discouraged him. He's not sure he's going to be able to continue because he has a big property, he needs to be able to share it in some way, but Duncanville says, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, but they don't tell you what you can do. We need somebody in our government that's going to be pro small business, that gives them direction. Not just, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, this is things that we hope that we would vision you doing. Can you do this? Can you do that? I mean, give a little bit. There's got to be a little more give on the small business side, or we're not going to welcome small businesses. They give up. They move away. They can't compete. They can't make profit. So this is very important, I think, for this, that Duncanville is to help small businesses.
Thank you for that.
Test one.
Thomas Lackey, 1880 Seabrook Drive. This is a question for you. You're a consultant and you do this for a living, right? Yeah, right. In your experience, okay, backtrack just a minute. I've had a home here in town for 8 years, and we have an acting city manager right now, so this is my 5th city manager. How do you keep these comprehensive plans sticky? Like we get this board that's gonna meet once a month, that's gonna enforce this plan, you know, the vision piece of this plan. But we're gonna have another city, you know, history has told us very soon, we'll have a new city government very soon, and our staff turnover has been extremely high. So how do you keep this plan? Because I don't want any more Post-it notes on white boards.
A great question, and that's why the steering committee laid out that implementation piece the way they did. It has to live beyond any one person or one staff person or one collection of staff people. The point of the public engagement was that if pursuing that this council decides to retire someday and not to be lifelong city council people, that the next group inherits a plan that the community has said, we're in, and we're gonna hold you to it. So the public engagement on the front end was a big part of that. The implementation committee is a big part of that. And then beyond this, we talked about these business plans in each department that have to tie back to the comprehensive. So one city manager terms over, unless city council directs him, throw that plan out the window. It doesn't rest on just one person's shoulders. Those are the mechanics behind it, but it all depends on people. You're 100% right. We gotta get stability there.
Hi, Monty Anderson, 1210 Greenleaf. One thing I never hear enough of is the wealth building of locals. And I think somebody talked about it a minute ago, how investing in the people. And in fact, some developers come to town and they build things like cheap hotels on the freeway. Because, sorry, I can't, it's going on. Okay, is that better? Okay, but people come to town, they build cheap things in town, they build them up, and they act like they're gonna stay here a long time, and they promise us all this stuff, and then they leave, and then those things deteriorate. Just like Applebee's and the cheap hotels on the freeway, they move from Dallas over to Duncanville, and they just deteriorate. The best day they have is the day they were built, and they just go down from there. I would like to see us really focusing on local developers, local entrepreneurs, building wealth, helping people. In fact, I would say this in Marty, come to Duncanville, we're gonna help you own your building, not just be a renter. See, we need more boutique and less franchise, because we don't have that much, we don't have that much space. We should be the city could be a city of destination and boutiques, specialty, and I like legendary businesses, and that kind of thing. And I would like to focus a whole lot more on that. I don't really see any cities doing that. We should be focusing on building wealth and raising that poverty level that we talked about. We should be raising the bottom. I don't think it's replacing and worrying about the region. I think we should start with ourselves. Let's market to ourselves. Let's figure out who here. Let's train people here. Help people to do this work instead of having somebody from the outside do it.
Thank you for that.
My name is Evan Young. I'm at 919 Eisenhower. My question is largely regarding the homeless population, slash people who stand on the street, ask for money. We've seen those signs that go up that say, stop giving money, basically, to people asking for money. I don't know how you feel about this, but it's very hard to just look people in the eye and ignore them, act like they don't exist. So I'm curious what we can do to help people that are looking for help.
Great question. Something that we have to dig at.
Hi, my name is LaTanya Banks, 2102 Blue Ridge Drive in Duncanville. I was reviewing the strategic plan, and I noticed a 15-year plan. And based on the information we had in there, there's a couple of things that would really like to see dug in a little deeper. As a couple of gentlemen have said already, that the main focus of the plan is on infrastructure and not the people. You shared in the plan that we have over 37% of the household who are less than $50,000. So if we build this beautiful place, what about the people who can't afford to stay here? So we need to look at what is it we want to do in order to invest in the people, so that the people invest in Duncanville in order for Duncanville to grow and redevelop itself. The other thing was industry. We are a part of the Best Southwest. One thing you can see when you look at Cedar Hill, you look at DeSoto, and you look at Lancaster, they are landlocked as well, but they utilize that land they have, and they looked at industries that could be developed in their cities or municipalities that would bring revenue into the city. And those companies, like distribution centers that brought revenue into those cities, they also brought investment and funding that took care of the roads and the beautification and all of those things that we need. So Duncanville needs to look at what did DeSoto do, what did Cedar Hill do in order for them to bring all the distribution centers in and increase their revenue in order for the city to continue to grow. And thirdly, going back to the people, we have generation and generation of people who have lived in Duncanville. I lived in Duncanville for 7 years. I moved out, lived in Cedar Hill, came back to Duncanville. I've been here for about 5 years now. However, you have generations in here. So you have seniors, they have been here all their life. You have new generations with their kids. We're not addressing enough in the strategic plan. That's a 15-year plan of what we want to take care of those people who are aging that are still in the city. What are we gonna do to take care of the kids who we want to keep in the city, so in order for them to reinvest in what we've already started? So we need to take a look at that strategic plan and figure out how we want to incorporate investing in the people, taking care of our youth and our seniors in order for us to meet the goal that we're trying to meet in 10 years.
Thank you for that.
Omari Wright. My business is at 703 Big Stone Gap Road. I would like to point out that every time we have a conversation of stuff about people, we don't get a response. But we talk about infrastructure, roads, we have response. This is something that I think you know from the response that we haven't planned for. There's no plan for it, but we need to put this in. And that's what I'm reiterating on what we talked about. It's not in the plan. We're not taking care of people. So the statistic you said, how Duncanville is going to fail, is going to fail because we're not investing in people. We're not investing in our youth. Don't have land for those who can't provide for themselves. Building and they can't afford it, it makes no sense.
Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions, comments? Okay, so we are done with the public hearing session, and if there's no other questions, so I ask one more time, everyone sure they don't have any additional questions? Okay, we do have someone right here.
Ignacio Cruz, 1903 Silver Creek. So I have the same issue as some of the people here. I host exchange students from Asia, and when I started hosting, they used to walk from my house to the park. Now, people drive so fast on the way. I didn't see no investing or anything like that. So that's my
Matt, do you want to respond? Because you talked about some implementation of road changes that might answer some of his questions.
Sure. So I will say, to the crowd about where we responded tonight, where we didn't. So I talked for like an hour, and I could tell it was wearing you out. I promised the mayor 30 minutes, and I think I went like an hour and 15. The plan itself is a lot deeper than what we put on the screen here tonight. So I would encourage you to go and read through it. We weren't able to cover every piece of it. Areas where you've identified, I think this gentleman in the back hit the nail on the head, and we can be more expressive or more directive about how to address workforce, how to address resident retention and wealth building, among training. I love the question about vocational training. Those are things that we'd have to hub back on and see where we can strengthen that stuff in the plan. That's why I didn't answer it directly, because it's not an answer today. Questions about, particularly your questions, both of you had questions about how do we connect our residents to schools, how do we connect our residents to parks and other amenities and facilities. The plan calls for investments in that connectivity infrastructure. We really believe that a large portion of our population have the resources to have 2 cars in every house so we can drive them everywhere. B, a lot of people complain about traffic, and so the more cars we have, the less options we have to get from one place to another, the more traffic we'll have. And C, a lot of people just choose to walk. we just choose to be connected. And I know on a day like today, it's hard to think if I had a decision to make between hopping in my air-conditioned car and walking a half a mile to my destination. It's probably an easy decision. So what the plan calls for is creating this complete streets master plan that says, at first focuses in areas like schools and public facilities, because the city's gonna have to focus its investment. We can't just say we'll put sidewalks everywhere, but what we can say is, how do we connect neighborhoods to schools? How do we connect neighborhoods to parks? How do we connect neighborhoods to public facilities? How do we make sure people can get there on foot, by bike, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And so there's not a very specific, put a sidewalk here, don't put one there, but there is an action item that calls on city council to make that assessment and to those investments. So if you haven't had a chance to review it again, DuncanvilleCompPlan.com, and the full deep plan is there.
All right, thank you once again. And before we close out, because I'm going to adjourn our public portion of the public hearing, I want to ask the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission if there's anything else if we close this meeting. But thank you again, Matt, for the presentation. Thank you to all the staff. And you have a remark?
Yeah, yes, Mayor, just a real housekeeping note. After the adjournment of the meeting, we do have, that we did a raffle for those who participated, so they will do that. So those that did participate that round, and we will do that after the adjournment. So just a help note.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so with that, again, I want to thank you all for being here. Council thanks you, all the committee members. This is so important that we have this kind of representation. I'm real proud of Duncanville to build this place up for people interested in what's going on in the future. And thanks again to the people that participated on the commission to bring all this information to you. They put a lot of hours in, and I'm sure you know who they are, and you can thank them on the way out. But let's give them a round of applause. Okay, so with that, we are going to adjourn the city council portion of this meeting at 8:20 p.m.
And we will adjourn the planning and zoning portion of the meeting at 8:21 p.m.